All right. Well, this is a long overdue podcast that I decided to finally make. I was hoping that the next podcast I have could be about shooting, but unfortunately it's about drama, and it's got to be said. I don't have much of a choice to make this at this point because they've came after my life. They came after what I love to do. They came after my career. They came after how I support my family, and it's time that I expose them all. I've had enough. I'm tired of being attacked. I'm tired of defending my personality. I'm tired of trying to tell people I'm not what everybody else keeps telling them. And it's time. It's time. It's time. So I'm going to have to take you back a little bit to kind of get you this full story, because I can't tell you what's going on now until you get the whole story, because it goes back 7 years ago. There's a lot of facts in here, and I wanted to make sure I was factual. I don't make things up. I don't lie. I don't have to lie. This is why I never get caught in lies, because I don't. So here's the truth about how I'm treated and how these people in this area attack me and come after me continuously. Here's the story. I started this sport in 2017 at a club in Clearwater called Wyoming Antelope Club. I worked on gaining access in 2018 by volunteering every week to gain access to the range so I could practice. I would attend work days with all of my tools, help build and repair equipment once a month. I was a general contractor at that time, by the way. I eventually was able to gain access to the range after a full year of volunteering. It was not the easiest thing to gain access to, that's for sure. Being a hard worker wasn't enough. The biggest hurdle to get over was the politics of being liked. I was told multiple times in that year that they wish I was less like me and more like others. My personality was constantly attacked. I blew off all the personality attacks, as you can tell. It's not something I'm new to. All I cared about was gaining access to the range so I could practice and become a better shooter. Being laser focused on getting the goal actually hurt me in the long run because I had blinders on when it came to what they actually thought of me. I also really enjoyed building stages because at the time, I really felt like I could learn how a stage was broken down and shot by building them. I would show up for 2 hours before every match and everyone else so I could build a better stage and take my time. I volunteered at this range every Tuesday, Friday, and fourth Sunday for 2 years straight. Never missed a match. I started off with a pretty strong relationship with the leadership of this club. I felt like they had my back because they appreciated the hard work and dedication I was putting in towards the club. At this point, I had already had some hate because I was starting to really progress as a shooter. One thing that was clear is that I had a group of the old guard at this club that absolutely hated me. Even though I went out of my way to be friendly and help, it didn't matter. They wanted me gone. Where I truly made my mistake is that I felt like everyone liked me. I was in tight with the top brass, and I just kept my head down and only talked to my friends. I busted my ass every week building stages or working to fix props. So at no time did I think the fellow ROs would be after me. Now we are into year 2, and I started noticing some changes in the stages I built. I had a pretty large group of younger guys that I became amazing friends with at this point, and we were all focused on getting better. We would all squad together on stage 3. Well, this is when the problems really started for me. We were a bunch of excited, shit-talking friends, and the old guard absolutely hated it. They came after me full force. I had already made GM in a year and was starting to coach, and that's when the real attacks began. I was pulled into a trailer they had on property almost every week for some kind of complaint about me. First, it was I was too loud. Then it was because I cursed. Then it was because our squad was becoming too much of a clique. I mean, you name it, I was talked to about it. The reason I started wearing headphones was because I constantly was being attacked for my personality. I hope by wearing headphones, it would keep me from talking to my friends so I wouldn't be too loud or cuss. I'm not going to lie. They almost got me to quit. It was a pretty miserable year for me in this sport. But the only thing that saved me were those friends and my drive to be great at this sport. The radio helped not because they stopped coming after me, but because I no longer was focused on them. I was back to being focused on the process of being great. Now let's get into where it all fell apart. I built a complex stage that took me 2 hours to build. It took forever to find all the holes and clean up all the 180s. One thing I forgot to mention is this range only has one berm on all the bays except for bay 4. It has 1.5 berms so I could get creative and build a bigger stage. The angles are brutal to deal with when it comes to the 180 roll on this bay, but I was able to figure it out and I'm very good at understanding that bay. At this point, I've been building stages for almost 2 years. I know all the stage building and rules to really understand how to make it all fit in that bay. I get the stage exactly the way I want it and start getting ready for the match to start. As I'm getting ready, one of my friends walks over and informs me they are changing my stage. Imagine spending 2 hours building a stage and a group of people start changing it. Not just once, but for an entire year. At this point, I had hit my boiling point, but understood that if I blew up at these people, I'm going back for another talk in the shed. So I politely walked over and asked them what they were doing and why. They informed me that my stage was illegal. I politely informed them that it wasn't and asked them to please put it back. I walked away at this point because I was beyond frustrated with this group of people. They were supposed to be held to a higher standard, being fellow ROs. Come to find out, I was the only one held to a ridiculous standard, and that still is placed upon me to this day by these people. Well, what was really going on that night is I was being set up to lose my temper so they could get me suspended or banned from the club. I have never been good at seeing petty people or jealous people because I don't think like that at all. If someone was better than me at something, I got better because of it. Never have I tried to ruin another man's life because they were better. So I finally get to the stage and I see that nothing is back where it was supposed to be. I walked down the range and saw a barrel stack that took me 30 minutes to set up because it was that tight on the 180 line. After all that work to walk onto that stage and see it all change and a full year of them screwing with me, I drop kicked those barrels about 10 yards. I calmly walked over to those fallen barrels and quietly placed them in the 180 trap as before and walked away. Not saying a single word to anyone for the rest of the night. What I didn't see is the watchdogs were out that night waiting for me to slip up, and I did. It is still one of my biggest regrets. I allowed them to push me that far and gave them exactly what they wanted. I was suspended from the club the very next day after they called the match director. Not a single person called me to ask why I was upset or why after 2 years I decided to kick over barrels. This was the opportunity to label me as a problem in this sport. This was a very successful campaign for many, many years. My reputation in Florida has been absolutely destroyed because of this club and its leadership. In spite of all the rumors I was able to grow, despite all the rumors, I was able to grow my business into what it is today by coaching outside of Florida. I took it like a man, and it's the only time I've ever lost my cool in this sport. I mean, that drop kick was 2 years of them coming after me, constantly telling me my personality is shit, that I need to change. It didn't matter what I did. I was never accepted by that old guard, and they were in the match director's ear every week about me. So I took my suspension like a man and went to other clubs in the area. I never had any issues, except when that Clearwater RO group would venture out of that club. Every time they were at a match, I had an issue. So eventually, I gained access to the Clearwater Club again after a 6-month suspension. I lost my access to the range that I worked my ass off for, but was able to attend the local matches again and shoot with my friends. I felt like I could repair my relationship with the match directors and gain my access back by busting my ass like I did the first time. Building stages 2 times a week and every 4th Sunday. Well, I made it about 6 months and they tried to set me up again. But this time, I was ready. One of the red hats there was ROing me and decided he was going to cuss me out and berate me in front of 30 people.
Clear. Hey, let me... Tom, hold up. Pull your gun back out, show your fucking chamber, and click it down.
All right, well, calm down.
All right?
Just ask nicely.
Well, you just took off before I said it was clear. We'll put it out. All right, now, hammer down. And
There's a certain way to talk to people. You don't talk to people like that.
You tell me that.
But this time I saw it coming and I kept my cool. The crazy part of it all is I was the one called into the shed for the talk. That night is the night I lost all respect for the match director, Dan Bernard. Dan Bernard was a man I respected and I considered a friend, but I realized he never had my back and I wasn't smart enough to see it. He runs that club with an iron fist and could have stopped the constant harassment I was receiving, but did not. I was pulled into that shed and was told that the other match directors have to manage me when at the club. I'm a 40-year-old man being managed. This is the level of control these people think they have. He told me that wearing my radio didn't fix the problem of me talking too much or being too loud. It just covered up the problem. Mike Howell, a match director for the club and my mentor at the time, was sitting in that room that night and never supported me. Never came to my defense, even though it would be the two of us building 4 stages by ourselves because no one showed up to help on the regular basis. Nothing hurts more than when someone you look up to and respected throws you to the wolves to save his own ass. I was banned from the club for the second and final time. The same night their red hat cursed at me and jumped in my face. He never faced a single consequence for his actions. I was threatened that if I pursued any recourse, that the board did not like me and I would be the one facing consequences. This now brings me to the range in Ruskin. At the time this was all happening, my buddies wanted to start a USPSA club. Yes, we aren't very smart. The club in Ruskin was perfect. We were all friends with the range owners, and the existing club match director was tired after 13 years running the club. So the three of us start running the matches. It was going great. It was going really, really great. We started to see some of the Clearwater Red Hats at the match that used to never attend, but thought nothing of it. The crazy thing is, this is when I realized how much control the Clearwater crew had in all of Florida. This club has a deep pool of Red Hats, ROs. They basically officiated every match in Florida at the time. At this time, a lot of the majors were held in Florida. This is why I've constantly struggled to keep out of the drama. This club had a stranglehold over most of the local clubs. The ROs that never shot at our club in Ruskin would go back and report how we were running the matches. It eventually got to the point that we as match directors had to tell them that if you can't come to the match without trying to take it over, don't come back. Surprise, surprise, we didn't see them for another 3 years while I was in charge. I can't express to you how this affects morale in this area. You are under constant threat of being banned from your local matches. There is always someone watching you to go tell the Clearwater Club everything, waiting for you to make the wrong call so they can tell the Clearwater Club. They would go tell the Clearwater Club that you were mean because you asked people to stop throwing trash on the ground. You name it, I've dealt with it. This leads up to a really big defining moment that cemented what I had known all along, but was too close to the situation to realize. They didn't hate me because of my personality. They hated me because they couldn't control me. Control is everything to these people. Clubs, people, and slots to nationals. A lot of people don't realize, but one of the most powerful positions in USPSA is your section coordinator. In my area, we had 4 or 5 clubs at the time, including the Clearwater clubs. I say clubs because what they would do is separate their matches so they could have 2 clubs, which gave them 2 votes instead of 1 to put the section coordinator of their choice in, the one they could control. This means if you want a slot, you have to go to them and kiss the ring to gain access to nationals. So the year to vote for the section coordinator comes up while I'm still the match director at the Ruskin Club. If I remember correctly, it was my 2nd year as match director. So I brushed up on the process and talked to the other match directors, and we decided that Clearwater was no longer going to dictate how we run our clubs, and we voted to keep the now current section coordinator. This is when they showed their true colors. After the vote, they verbally berated the section coordinator that they previously voted for, might I add, and decided to become independent clubs. Once they realized the section coordinator wasn't able to be controlled, they couldn't wait to remove him. What they didn't realize is that they pissed off a lot of the other clubs by trying to control everything. This now leads up to my final year as the Ruskin match director. I worked this match for 3 years. We were running 2 matches a month for the majority of those 3 years with only a handful of helpers. It fell on the 3 of us to get it all done on Saturday night from 5:30 p.m. to whenever we finished for the Sunday morning match. At the end of year 1, we lost one of the match directors because he relocated. Then in year 2, I lost my second match director because of the military. So this leaves the entire match on me to run and make successful. At this point, you probably think I'm crazy for sticking around, but I really love this sport if you haven't already noticed. One thing that I was really terrible at in my younger years was finishing something I started. I was the ultimate quitter. I would start something new before completing the thing I was already doing. But something clicked in my early 30s and I never quit again. I take that into my entire life now, and it has served me well. So I was going to stick it out until I couldn't find a replacement. At this time, my coaching business had exploded, and I was traveling for classes almost every weekend, as well as running my construction company. I asked at every safety meeting before every match for help, trying to find a replacement only for the weekends I was out of town. I had planned on continuing as match director, so I made the choice that I was going to have to finally walk away from the match director position at Ruskin because I couldn't find help. I was not kicked out. I did not just abandon the match, and I never had problems with the owners or management there. Once the Clearwater Club knew we weren't letting them take over, all the problems left for 3 years straight. That, unfortunately, didn't mean that all my problems went away. They just transferred to the shadows instead of out in the open. Now they could openly badmouth me at their club, at the local matches, actively telling people that I'm not a good person, or that I'm not a good instructor, or a problem in this sport. I asked Dan Bernard to please talk to his crew, to just leave me alone and let it go. Talk to your crew. Even though Dan and I don't see eye to eye, I have always kept it respectful and not allowed it to become personal up to this point. This is why you have never heard me tell this story before. I have kept this quiet for 7 years and taken all the hits thinking that one day they would eventually let me be. The respect has obviously not been mutual. I hadn't been to the WAC in almost 3 years, yet I hear about my name being mentioned weekly. The culture there has become a cancer in this area and spreads like wildfire. It's been open season on me in Florida for 7 years now, but this latest incident is why I have finally decided to expose all of this. I have kept my mouth shut about what they have done to me, hoping that they would just leave me be, but now they went too far. I have had one of the hardest weeks of my life. They took my freedom, career, and livelihood away from me in one day. I had to call clients that were coming into town to train with me and cancel. I had to call a law enforcement class that I have had scheduled for months and cancel because of this group. I had to call and explain that I wasn't allowed to touch a firearm over false accusations. I forfeited my firearms at my residence in front of my neighbors and my family, all because of this group. I handed the firearms over to the police. I was not raided or arrested by the ATF or whatever ridiculous rumors you have heard or helped spread. I'm a law-abiding citizen and I support law enforcement. Now I need to take you back to December 17th of 2024. This is my opportunity to tell you the real truth about what happened on that day at Ruskin and why I was banned from that range. I shot stage 6 and had a pretty good run, but wanted to shoot it again for no score just to clean up some things I didn't like. We were on our last shooter when the squad behind walks up. I asked the other squad if they minded if I snuck in a quick run before they started, and they all agreed. Yes. They all actually wanted to see my plan and how I was going to run it, so I reshot the stage. This is where it all went bad. Someone on our squad didn't get the memo that I wasn't shooting it for score and zeroed out my score. So another reshoot happened for score. Funny part is I had almost the same hit factor, if not a little worse. So I'm telling the match director what happened. While I'm explaining what happened, I have a guy I don't even know start questioning my integrity on the reshoot. So after one attempt of trying to explain myself, he decided to ramp up the attitude and I instantly told him that I don't give a fuck what your opinion is. Well, as you can imagine, he didn't take that very well and decided to try and yell at me, which I ignored, and the match director stepped in and told us to stop. I turned around and walked away after loading mags and thought nothing of it, since I still don't even know who the hell he was. I know now that he is one of the Clearwater guys. That was the full conversation. No cussing him out, no screaming, and no arguing or fighting with ROs for reshoots. Just me telling him that his opinion doesn't matter to me. What I didn't realize at that point was who I was dealing with. After asking some of the other shooters who the hell he was, I found out that his name was Thomas, and he has had a grudge against me for 2 years. They informed me that he openly talked shit about me at the Clearwater Club, as well as the morning at Ruskin, the day he decided to come at me. Amazing how that club keeps coming up, especially when it comes to the people coming after me. Now that I'm no longer running Ruskin, the club has turned into Clearwater 2.0. All the problems that went and hid in the shadows were now back at the Ruskin match. This is where the story gets crazy. This guy decides to write a letter to USPSA and try and have me banned over hurt feelings. It didn't work. He then reaches out to Troy McManus, our DNRI, to help ban me. That didn't work either. I let my RO certificate lapse for this exact reason. DNRI has the power to suspend you if you are a certified RO. He then goes to Dan Bernard at the WAC and asks him to do something, but he couldn't. He failed again. At this point, he was pissed. He then sends a letter to the range in Ruskin and has me banned from there. I don't want to forget to mention that not a single person from the range reached out to me and even asked me my side of the story. They didn't even reach out to the squad to ask for the truth. They had the story they wanted, and after 3 years running their match, I was banned. The new match director is a Clearwater guy and helped ban me from the WAC the first time. So they got me again. This is when I started exposing Thomas's actions on my social media. Well, he didn't like that. He didn't like that I exposed him and his actions publicly. Getting me banned wasn't enough for his guy. He decided that he would email a sponsor that I am right in the middle of negotiations with and try to ruin my reputation by lying about the incident and embellish the story. He failed again and got nowhere. I received a phone call from this sponsor to inform me of this guy's attempt to block my sponsorship. I then exposed him again for his actions on my social media. Well, at this time, he's not getting the results he's looking for, so he decided to use his law enforcement background and filed an injunction on me for stalking. In pure desperation, he took screenshots of my post and added as many ridiculous claims as possible. He was able to get his temporary injunction in front of a judge that doesn't do those types of cases normally. This is not a joke, and he knows this. He tried to ruin another man's life over hurt feelings. He tried to take my career from me and my freedom to own firearms by lying. He has also tried to destroy the reputation that I have built in this sport. If his lies went unchecked, he could have taken my firearms away from me for life, all because his ego. He couldn't handle a loss. Multiple losses. This is where I realized that it's not just a crazy guy or an unreasonable person that doesn't like me, but that these guys are actively working together to destroy my name. I was served the papers for this temporary injunction on February 10th, which would have been on a Monday. February 8th and 9th, Dan Bernard was in California teaching a CRO class openly, telling members of that class about my injunction. I want you to realize that I don't even have the injunction in my hand, and they are telling people about my injunction. This is the level that these people are going to take my career, to take my freedom. Thomas also decided to bring the director of the DNRI, Troy McManus, into this case by sharing a text message which he openly texted back, "He is a problem." Exactly how am I a problem, Troy? Because I don't bow my head and kiss the ring of the leader of the Clearwater crew, who happens to be one of your instructors? I have always treated you with respect, but as most of the fake people I see in this sport, it obviously wasn't a mutual thing. This just shows you there is people high up in this sport that are actively trying to destroy their members' names and reputations. Thomas decided to drop the case as soon as we walked into court. After a week of wasted money, time, and stress, it was all over. Another loss for Thomas. He knew he couldn't stand in front of the judge and not commit perjury. He has abused his title as a law enforcement officer multiple times in this case, trying to say I was threatening him all because I exposed him for his actions. Getting me banned from another local club, all because I didn't care who he was. For all of you that don't know, he could have had me arrested and thrown in jail if he was able to convince the judge. It's against the law to threaten law enforcement, and he tried multiple times to use it. He has now dragged in other shooters and pretended to protect my reputation while he was actively telling people about my injunction before I even received one. Fellow shooters that weren't even at the match are even chiming into the court case through text messages he decided to use as evidence. I find this funny because the amount of lies that this man has told to get people on his side is astounding. He felt so threatened that he decided to tell everyone he was going to get me banned. He then decided to tell everyone about the injunction before I even received it. Sounds like I'm the one being stalked at this point. He contacted the board to let them know I had an injunction before I was even served. This man has tried to ruin me over hurt feelings. The community has now had a chance to run wild with the rumors about me, and I thank you for that. What you don't understand is that the more you lie, the more you expose of the real truth and how this sport is absolutely broken at the top. I keep my head down and focus on me. I hate drama, and I have zero drama outside of the people that pull this shit. But when you come after me, you get my full attention, and I will no longer allow this type of behavior to go on without exposing it. I have endured 7 years of endlessly defending myself, trying to constantly repair my image that has been portrayed about me. Now you have both sides of the story, and I will see you on the range.